Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. It's the end of the day. The hubbub out there is terrible. Hopefully, it won't distract from proceedings. On our panel today, unfortunately, Peter Galdies, who you can see there, who was our nominated data expert. DQM is a company that looks at data security and the whole issue around data protection and so on, and privacy for big corporations. Unfortunately, Peter can't be here. He's gone missing, which is slightly more troubling, but hopefully nothing untoward. Anyway, on our panel today, on the right-hand side is Simon from Microsoft, Richard Robinson in the middle there from Google, and Paul Cash from OTM. It's important, in case you don't know, these three guys have helped set the agenda for the entire show. So as a part of the IDM's Digital Advisory Council, the IDM has been a key partner on this show with TFM&A. We've been that for 5 years, but this year, through the great help of these guys on the platform today, they've actually helped set the agenda and carry the show off. So because of that, and because we all wanted to make this as interactive as possible, we'd like you to really join in and help set the agenda around what you want to find out. Because you've got basically 40 minutes of free consultancy from three big guys, from three big brands, who can arguably help you with stuff that's troubling you, keeping you awake at night, stuff that you notice in your organization that you'd like to be able to weigh in and try and find a way to fix. Some of the big issues around the industry today, we've got loads of start of 10 questions if we need them, around big data, around multi-channel marketing, around is social being left in silos because no one can join it up with the rest of the company's data, those types of things. We decided we could talk at you for 35 minutes and have 5 minutes for questions, but actually it's really all about you. And so we're going to really try and put the emphasis on you guys to challenge these guys who are ready, willing and able within the normal constraints of they're not going to badmouth their own organisations, they're not going to betray trade secrets and so on, but they're very keen to make this for you as opposed to for them. Richard stood on a platform for an hour this morning talking about the future of digital. If you saw that, you now know about the future of digital. It's not his place to want to come and do that again today. We really want to shape this around what you want to find out for some serious experts who are willing to answer any question you throw at them. If there's a question that we can't answer, we're going to do in the time-honoured tradition of, if we don't know it, leave us your details and we'll come back to you with an answer. And that's a commitment that we're all prepared to make and follow through. That might be particularly true without Peter on the platform because he really is heavily qualified in the whole area of data, privacy and so on. And I think if all of you are in this industry, you'll know that the DMA said 3 weeks ago they've got 140 days to save the industry because if the privacy laws as currently writ go through untouched, the industry will come to a grinding halt. Now, they would say that, wouldn't they? To sensationalise and to draw everyone's attention to it, but there's a very real risk that marketing as we know it in this technology-driven age will fundamentally change and not for the better from a marketing point of view if the legislation as writ goes through the way it is. So if there are particular areas that you want to talk about there, we would please leave your details and we'll get those to Peter and we'll get Peter to come back to you. The guys on the platform know an enormous amount about data anyway and privacy and protection, Google, Microsoft, OTM. So if they can answer the questions, they absolutely will. If we can't, we'll revert back. So the onus is on you guys. We'll do a little warm-up, and I'll throw something at the panel just to get the conversation going around something like taking the premise of the debate. I'm an old-school direct marketeer turned digital marketeer turned marketeer in the post-digital age. So back in the day, we used to set KPIs, we used to do test and learn, we used to reiterate, we used to do it at volume, we used to do it in a very slow way, it was never in real time. We never had a single view of the customer. All those things that got in the way of doing really, really good direct marketing now would all appear to be doable in this technology-driven age. And in real time, if you believe the people that continuously spout on about big data and the potential of big data, they would have you believe that you can join up call centres, websites, social media, and have a lovely clear view of every single interaction you have with every single customer and prospect that comes along. In reality, it's not quite like that, and even if you talk to the best and the biggest companies, they will all tell you it's not quite like that because of legacy systems, etc., etc., etc. So we can do a warm-up exercise around big data, or we can do a warm-up exercise around what's happening organisationally in this technology-driven age and how that impacts marketing, the fact that you've got to have very close relationships with technology, with your insight teams, the shifting dynamics around who's got the control and the power in that organisation. We can have a long conversation about measurement. The IPA and ISBA, the two principal trade bodies for the industry, the IPA for advertising, and agencies, and ISBA for the client community, have a joint mission, I can tell you, because they've told me and we've discussed it, about getting marketing back into the boardroom. And the reason it's fallen out of the boardroom, especially in this technology-driven age, is become increasingly difficult to measure, forecast, measure, and report back on marketing activity, because it's just not like that anymore. And it's equally difficult to do campaign by campaign, because as we know, it doesn't work like that either. So there's a joint mission in the industry to get marketing back in the boardroom. That's largely about numeracy, and that's a whole debate topic, and these guys know a lot about that. I think the one I'll throw out there to start the ball rolling before we say to you guys, please put your hand up. And by the way, as soon as you've got a question, as soon as you've got a point you want to make, please put your hand up. There's a couple of roving mics. We'll get to you really quickly, and then we'd like to make it interactive, okay? So the start of a 10 is to look at the sort of collision of the old worlds of marketing and the new worlds of marketing, and the challenges that any organisation faces in integrating the old and the new channels, and orchestrating how they all work together, driven by technology in this multi-channel world with insight and business intelligence to feed the chain. I think to get an initial point of view, we'll ask each of the panellists to just give a point of view on that, and then hopefully that will start to generate some thinking amongst you guys. So do you want to take that one first, Simon?
Sure. Yeah, so I think, originally marketing was perhaps limited to the who around the customer, so looking at demographic and psychographic type data. And now increasingly with the proliferation of social media channels, you've also got the social and interest graph added to that as well. So you've got the more of the what and the why. The challenge for companies and organizations is to be able to align those two sets of data, both what's held within their traditional CRM databases, but also what they can glean either from the media channels, from the likes of Facebook and Twitter, but also from data on their own properties as well. So, clickstream data, and understanding how customers are moving through all of these different places. So both from owned, earned, and also paid as well. So if companies are able to integrate across all of those different data sets, then we can start to understand really, why are they doing that, and to what degree. And that's a challenge that I've got every day right now, is how do we, from a technological point of view, integrate those different things, but also, moreover, from a people standpoint as well, is actually developing the skill set. I think that's a real challenge. I think we're moving from an age where the traditional marcoms manager actually needs to become a technical marketing manager to really understand this data.
Richard, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting points in there. If I take it from my angle, well, when we're bringing the old world marketing and new world marketing together, I think there's many of the principles are exactly the same. You talked about test and learn, you talked about segmenting your clients, testing creative, all of those sorts of things. Those are as applicable today as they ever have been. I think the key difference is this whole real-time data, real-time insight piece. And I think that's what really transforms and is going to be able to change companies in the way that they act and react to their customers, is because you can do things so much more quickly. We've got a digital guru in Google called Avinash Kaushik, and he says the best thing about the web is that you can fail fast. So you can test and learn, fail fast, put that away, and then move on. And I think that's absolutely the case. And it's a very low-cost option for doing that as well, and you can learn so much. I think to the point of the changing skill set that are needed within a business, Simon talks about this very articulately, is that absolutely the marketeer of yesterday is not the marketeer of tomorrow. If you look at research by, I think it's Gartner, that says that the CMO is going to spend more money on technology than the CIO moving forward. It just shows that that technical layer is so important for the way that we engage with customers moving forward. So we really need to think about that technical piece there as well. And then wrapped around that is what are the skills that you need within a marketing organisation to be able to cope with taking the great best practices from a bygone age and actually using the tools that you've got today to do that. I think a lot of people just assume that their marketing skills are up to date, assume that they can cope with this, whereas what we're seeing is skills around data analysis, data mining, complex segmentation and cluster analysis of customer groups is incredibly important, and being able to then target those customers with the right message. So those are some of the key themes that I'm seeing and the challenges that we're facing as well.
On to you, Paul.
Yeah, so I come at it from the agency side, so I get to see the fear in the eyes of lots of marketing directors and marketing teams as they try to battle the complexity and confusion that exists within marketing today. And it's a real tough challenge to understand what you need to do. I think the way I perceive it all is that the real challenge is to be master blenders, and what I mean by that is you've got to take the best of the old, the best of the new tools and technology, social media and content. They grow up in silos within organisations, and we've all sat and wrestled with how those silos fit in. But now the challenge or opportunity is to integrate all the best ideas and the best tools and technologies we know to form a much more integrated point of view of the world. And I think that is the real challenge now, is understanding whatever your go-to-market strategy is, whether you're an online business, a retailer, understanding clearly what those channels are and blending the best with the resources and assets you've got. And that is something that happens over time, and things change all the time, so it's a constant battle to try and stay relevant and up to date as well. So.
Show of hands, how many people identify with some or all of that? Quite a few of you. Excellent. So there should be loads of questions. You're the first lady. Congratulations. Microphone coming. Can you just say who you are and your company? That'd be great.
Does this work? Yes, it is. My name's Nikki Sorensen, and I come from Denmark, from a film marketing company. You mentioned that the marketer of yesterday is not the marketer of today. The problem is that the marketers of yesterday are the people who have the marketing budgets. Do you have any good advice for how someone like me would move those marketing budgets if they don't listen to the facts and won't see what's completely obvious for me?
Great question. Who wants to pick that up?
I'll take it first. Yeah, so I think it's a brilliant observation, and you're right in the middle of it all. But I think you've really got to surround yourself with young, emerging talent, the people who've got the ideas and the knowledge. But you've got to bring your old world skills to bear on that in terms of leadership, in terms of understanding how to manage that talent to get the things that you need out of them. Well, they'll just go eventually, I hope.
Interestingly, there was a very trite answer to your question, although not so trite. And actually, it's a theme which we at the IDM are exploring quite heavily at the moment, which is retraining all those that missed the whole digital explosion. And by the way, they're all the people that own the budgets and run the companies. The whole thing about C-suite now is so many of those people miss what happened. They didn't practice. They understand vaguely, conceptually, but it's just not enough. So the answer is retraining and not being embarrassed to say it. It's a bit like saying to you guys, don't be the one who feels too shy to ask, the question you might think isn't the question the panel wants to hear. Any question is valuable. It will increase your learning, put your mind at rest, whatever it is. But I think there's a whole group of people who need to go back to school. Would be my view.
I'll just follow on from that. So I think there's two things that you could do potentially. So there's reverse mentoring. So you can sit a C-level executive down with someone that actually knows what's going on, and also show what the competition's doing and what results that they've delivered as a result of some of these programs as well.
Excellent. Any more questions?
Hi, Hi, Kathy. I'm from First Data Bank. I work in healthcare IT, private sector, and I think it's a really exciting time for marketing because in the organisation that I work in, marketing is so much in demand. We've gone in 3 years from when I joined them to being just a comms function that we've now pulled way over into the social media sector. We've got active conversations going on the go, and product marketing want us, product development want us so badly because we can inform them on new product development and rapid iteration of new IT products coming out. The only issue is actually being able to persuade the SMT, the senior management team, to really invest in the technology that we need beyond simple headcount to deliver. So,
right,
very exciting times, though.
Yeah, good. So you've got the mentoring advice there. That could be one thing. And also, just to point out what the competition might be doing as well or better than you already, and scare the crap out of them. Actually, that normally makes senior management teams jump. Next question. Come on, this is a big area, and you all put your hands up, so there's got to be more questions. Anything that bugs you? Anything you're slightly worried about? Anything that you think your organisation could do better and these guys might be able to give you some advice about how you can fix it? Mike's on its way. If you can just say your name and your company, that'd be great to start with.
Yeah, hello, my name is Manoj Shah. I'm one of the directors at Pull Digital, which is a digital services agency. One of the really difficult challenges we've had recently is how to get our technology people and our marketing people to really talk together and to come up with innovative solutions. And I've seen a lot on the Microsoft side where it's something that has been raised, so I'd be interested in how you actually facilitate that and really make it happen.
Okay, do you want to take that first, Simon, then we'll move along the panel?
Clarify, so technology as in the developers and product marketing managers? Yeah. So, within Microsoft, we've got evidently a group that looks after the relationships between us and our developer community. So, absolutely, we're working with that ecosystem to drive, obviously for us, the apps within our App Store. Internally within Microsoft, what I've seen is that actually having blended teams. So I think, not that it's a question of organisational structure per se, but I've seen that when we're going to market, we've got a blended team of both technologists, creatives, and also marcom managers on the same team, and they have shared goals as part of that. So driving those alignments of commitments, I mean, it's kind of standard, organisational change, cultural stuff, but that absolutely. And I think also kind of education from both sides of the fence as well. So, running brown bags to make sure that marketeers understand the realm of the possible when it comes to technical aspects and all the different platforms that are out there in HTML5 and so on and so forth. And vice versa, how some of the campaigns that have been developed on that work have delivered results. So actually, sometimes that never actually happens, is that closed loop. The actual developers of that project don't actually see how it ends up in market and the business results that it drives.
If I can jump in on a very practical level, what I would love to see is marketing to actually be sat next to technology. So, if you're running a marketing part of the business where technology is so important, whether that's your website or whatever it is, it's so important. Just having somebody from the technology team embedded or at least just sat next to you just creates those open pathways of communication. Because what we see is a classic situation of siloed businesses. We're slightly different. We're an engineering-led company, so we all just follow the engineers around because that's where all the shit happens. But in other businesses, it's not necessarily engineering-led. So it's really important, just get the IT people to sit next to the marketing people if you really want to drive results.
Paul, do you have a view from the many clients that you advise?
I come from an agency background similar to yourself, and what we try to do is put together like hackathon days, so intense 24-hour projects where those teams can get together and work in a very intense environment to build an app or a tool or an idea and see how far they can go over that period of time. And the first few times, there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of anger and debate, but you find that the productivity is really quite amazing. And then once you've done it a few times, I think people really get the idea of how they can work with each other in a mutually beneficial way. So.
I can have one quite interesting anecdote. There's a guy called Lawrence Mitchell who sits on our digital council with these guys. He's the marketing director at Read Business Information. 5 years ago, they were a struggling publishing company like everyone else, very slow to react to the advent of technology and how it was going to transform their business. And he and the CTO were apparently like this for about a year. And then one day they realized they ought to go to the same conferences. So the CTO started to go to the marketing conferences with the CMO, and the CMO started to go to CTO-type conferences around technology. And they suddenly realized they could speak the same language, and in speaking the same language, figure out a way, and they eventually moved into an office together. So the two people most senior in the organization actually led the way for the entire organization to be dragged screaming and kicking from its almost dead on the ground to 5 years on. They got a spectacular, and this is at scale, and globally. So they've done it at a really impressive level, and it's simply because those two key individuals realized they had to be side by side, talking the same language and trying to fix the business's problems, or they'd all be dead. And that I think that's a great example of how it can work as long as the initiative is taken at that level. Any more questions? Yes? Microphone on the way.
David Seeley from Capgemini. I'm interested to know from the panel who they think is doing it well at the moment. So we've identified the problems. Who should we be looking to? Who's got this right?
Great question. In turn, Paul, do you want to start with that one?
Who's doing it well? I think I spend a lot of time in business to business, marketing, so I think there's some standout brands like Google. Obviously, I would say that on my right-hand side, who are doing a fantastic job at leading the way. I think brands like HP are making a big effort to re-engineer themselves. An old-world business model there is trying to really embrace digital at the heart of their business. I think that is the challenge. I don't think anybody is really nailing it, but lots of organisations are experimenting and trying and doing their utmost to try and move away from the traditional way of doing things to embrace more digital tools and channels.
Richard?
So I'd maybe like to bring it down a tier or two in terms of size of companies, but I see some real innovation in slightly smaller firms. One that comes to mind, and it was Paul reminded me of this around the hackathon thing, is a company called Simply Business. They do business insurance to small and medium-sized enterprises. And the way that they really integrate technology into their whole business process, the way that they go to market. The marketing is not about their products and services. The marketing's around the messages and providing advice to their customers, so helping their customers get better at their business, offering them a marketing advice or whatever else it is. So I think companies like that are doing really, really well. So there's things to look at there. I love the transition that we've seen in certain larger firms, more traditional firms, maybe from the electronic component space, again, very B2B, but grew up as people that developed catalogues with 4,000 pages and 32 SKUs per page, and then moving that into more of an online, a more integrated business. I mean, there's a couple of examples in that sector. One would be Electro Components, the other one would be Premier Farnell. And what Farnell are doing that's really interesting is that they're setting their whole business and their whole web presence up as an integrated community. They've got something called Premier Farnell and the node that sits around that as well, which is where it's all there to share best practice. It's putting the customer at the heart of their go-to-market strategy. So I think there's lots of good examples of people that are doing good things. I'm not sure I know one company that does everything brilliantly. If I did, I'd like to go and work there. But no, I think there's some really good examples from some small homegrown businesses here in the UK.
Simon, do you want to have a go at that one as well?
I think it's quite a big category. Who's doing well at what? I suppose the one thing that came out in my mind is a company called HubSpot. They're an inbound marketing company, so you'd expect them to do this well. But I do sign up to lots of companies just to see what their experience is like. And they do it fantastically well in terms of targeted messaging and not being, let's say, overtly broadcast kind of in the traditional marketing sense, but actually delivering content to me that's relevant when I want it, whether that's via email. They've got a very strong community, both on LinkedIn and actually on their own properties as well. I think that's a another area actually that's rich for undertaking. Everyone's thinking about, do I need to stand up a presence on these various social channels? But actually, there's a still massive amount of opportunity for people's own, for their own websites, and building a community there and a platform there. And HubSpot do a great job of that.
Very good. Welcome, Peter. Point of view on that one?
The telephony companies, the mobile comms companies, O2, Telefonica, EE, they're all doing fantastic things with data. They're all segmenting heavily and really pushing the boundaries, I think, as to what you can do with data-led marketing strategy. As a sector, the publishing sector has had to revise the way that it operates very heavily. And they are now using data really to drive content to people in many, many different ways. And it's interesting to watch how publishers behave, because publishers and marketers are becoming really quite similar in their behaviour. Interesting sector.
Thank you for that.
And the Economist is a great example of that.
Yeah. Again, anecdotally, there's a guy called, I think it's Graham Day at O2, Telefonica, who does a roadshow, and he's incredibly open about telling people how Telefonica, O2 in this market use their business intelligence unit, and I think there's a clue in there. Business intelligence reports to the board. It's not part of finance, it's not part of marketing, it's business intelligence. And it's their job to find insights that fuel any aspect of their business. So they determine what stock goes into what shops, where new shops should open, where they should close shops, as well as all the marketing stuff, as well as all the commercial stuff. He gives one great example where at one point there was something like 620 different mobile phone packages you could buy from O2 in this one market. And once they realised that, they obviously set about trying to, I think it's down to 64 now, so that in itself must have been a piece of work. But if ever you get a chance to go and listen to him speak, you should take it, because he's incredibly open about the type of things they do and how they do it. It's really worth hearing. Are there any more questions on this theme? Thank you.
Maybe a slightly different theme. As we transfer from the old world to the new world, what are people measuring? What are the key metrics that people are chasing now?
Great question. Who wants to kick that one off?
Well, maybe I'll have a go. The trite answer is you should measure what's appropriate for your business. I think that if you look at the old world, what were people measuring? So, take TV advertising. What do you measure out of that? It's kind of difficult to get any grasp on that. I think some of the performance indicators that I see people are looking at are, on your website, it's things around site visits, engagement, bounce rate, all of those obvious things. I think there's obviously things around open rates on emails, that sort of stuff. But I think what's really important is that you basically, as a company, you've got an ultimate goal, and that ultimate goal is probably going to be sales. So then you need to kind of create a framework of, well, what are the things that I need to measure to get me to that aim? And again, we've got a model that we use that's called the line of sight model, which basically looks at, well, what are the 4 principles that you need for to drive your business? And I'm probably going to get them wrong, but I'm going to give it a go. So it's about market share, market size, number of units, and the value of those units. And basically what we do is we look at any marketing that we're doing, and unless we can figure out of which of those lines this particular campaign sits in, we don't do it. And you kind of think, well, it sits in this one, great. Now, how am I going to measure it? And what's the reporting going to be? And move down the chain like that. Because a lot of campaigns, whether traditional or today or modern campaigns, they're almost a bit of a vanity piece. There's no real metrics behind them. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you these are the metrics you need to follow, because each business is different. But I think you need to understand what is your ultimate aim, and then make sure you're kind of working back from that.
And back to the earlier point I made, and this is fact, that marketing is whether it's justifiable or not, I'm not sure, but being accused of a lack of numeracy, a lack of understanding about what they should measure and how they should measure it, and ultimately a lack of accountability. It's all very well good to go into the boardroom asking for 20 million budget next year and how you're going to spend it, but I think what marketers are really struggling with is, well, if you spend that, so what are the returns going to be, and how are you going to measure effectiveness and those things? And I'm not prejudging anyone. It's unbelievably difficult now. As you know, the old ways of measuring television is still the old ways of measuring television, etc. But in this kind of connected technology world, you know, between social media and websites and microsites and mobile sites and, you know, all the other stuff, actually tracking and measuring is unbelievably difficult, particularly if you've got legacy systems in your organisation in the way of joining up all the information. Any more on this one? Yeah.
Hi there, my name's John Coupland, author of Accelerate Your Social Media. I'm going to ask this question on behalf of busy business owners in the SME market, so I'm not talking corporate here. So business owners that don't have necessarily a separate marketing department, so they lack the resource. Apart from automation, which is always controversial, what would you say are the key things that would help busy business owners, entrepreneurs, cut the challenge of time in social media? Time is very challenging for them anyway, and then suddenly you've got social media. It's a real pain point for them. I speak to them every day. So what would you say are some of the key tips on that?
All right. Well, I think since you lead the business vertical in Google, Richard, you should take that one first.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that one. I mean, I completely agree. Business people, very busy. Social media, they feel they need to be doing it. My first piece of advice is, what are you doing it for? Why do you want to do it? What is the value back to your business from doing it? There's no point in setting up a Twitter account or a Facebook page or a Google Plus page or whatever else it is, unless there's a value in it to your business. And then you need to start to weigh up the balances of, well, is it more valuable to do this than it is to do that? And start to understand that as well. So that, you know, everyone's got too much to do in the days, in the hours in the day. So it really is a prioritization. For a small business, it may well not be, I need to set up a Twitter account and have a social media presence. It may well be, I just need to, okay, bit of a sales pitch here, I just need to do local advertising on Google, or whatever it is. You need to do the basics first. Then once you understand what the value is of doing a particular social media thing, then go into that. I mean, I think there's lots of people, in my view, overcomplicate this. They try and do too much, and they try and be too many things to too many people. Just be genuine, just be authentic, and set your parameters within which you can work. And you know, you're not going to have 40,000 people following you on Twitter if you're only going to tweet once a week, and in fact what you're tweeting is a bit crap. So just think about what you're doing and why you want to do it. So, you know, with my teams and with people I talk with, I often suggest the word no, I'm not going to do that, is actually a really good starting point until somebody's proved the value of this. Only my views.
Simon?
Yeah, if can move on from Richard's point and say, let's say that business owner has decided that actually they do want to go down the social media route. I think there's probably pragmatic steps that they could take. Putting some specific time aside, maybe let's say the start of the day or a particular time of the day that suits them to actually do that social media management. It can actually see some quite big gains, I think, just by having a kind of a rigorous cadence of when they're doing that. I would also say that in terms of question of scale, again, cultivating perhaps a community of advocates. I live in Bath in the West Country, and I know that a lot of small businesses have quite a lot of fans just in the local community that actually shout for their cause, in classic kind of word of mouth fashion. So that's another way is to cultivate some advocates as well.
Actually, that's just reminded me of a real-life example. A friend of mine's having some work done on their house at the moment, and he's speaking to the builder, and there's a couple of these quite young guys running this building firm. And the business is going well, but they realised that they weren't engaging with their customers in the way that their customers wanted to be engaged with. So there's these two main guys in the building firm, and what they've done is they've changed their working hours. So one starts at 7:30 or whatever it is and works to 3 o'clock, and one starts at 12 and works to 7 o'clock or whatever the timing is. And that is beneficial for two things. One is it means that their customers can actually get hold of them when it's relevant for them. So first thing in the morning, later in the evening. So via telephone or email, they're answering email, that sort of thing. And the other thing is it means that it gives those guys a little bit of time to focus on their marketing. So, the guy that's working for up until 8 o'clock at night, that's his working day, is he's setting aside some time to focus on how to market their company. So looking at that flexibly and being a bit more dynamic in how a business is operating can often help.
Actually, that's a good point. Setting expectations, actually. Just simply setting expectations in the bio or having a standing page to set those expectations over what... It's arguable whether you could set expectations in the beginning, but at least having, setting your stall out in the first place is a good thing.
Pete, do you have a view on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're quite a small business, obviously you can consider using an agency as well. But you've got to make really sure that they really understand what it is that you achieve, what it is that you're all about, and how it works. So I would enter into that quite carefully. But if you're really strapped for a resource, that's one way of at least getting going, I think, and learning, really, as long as you're learning from it.
A final word, Paul?
Yeah, I think, the hype that surrounded social media hasn't helped small business owners. Everyone thinks they can write a blog or become a massive Twitter user, and it's really, really hard. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of craft, and unless you've got natural ability to create content, write engaging tweets, etc., you are probably best trying to just pick one area and try to do it the best you can and learn about it all, because there's going to be a lot of wasted time and effort in doing too many things, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience, by the way. You've done a brilliant job so far.
Hi. I previously worked for Cisco Systems and for Telefonica, and I'm an author of Emerging Business Online. I put together a model based on Cisco experience. It's called EBOQ. I'd love to share it with you all, the Kindle version, just to get your feedback afterwards. So I'd like to grab your email addresses.
That's a done deal.
Sorry about that. And so I'm wondering, I mean, in the previous days, olden days, traditional marketing days, we had things like Ansoff's Matrix, the BCG, all sorts of models and marketing models were out there, which really helped us to put a framework around what we were doing. In the social media and digital age, are there any models that you're looking at? Are there any more models that are in the market that you're aware of, or any models we see forming? I mean, we've got e-commerce, which is a viable model, but are there any other models that you're aware of that could help marketers to put some sense to what all this digital media mania?
Who'd like to kick that one off? Any volunteers?
Well, I'm not so sure I would deem it a model, but just that it's becoming common knowledge about looking at media between paid, owned and earned. And I would recommend, if you haven't already done so, is look up some of the Altimeter research, Brian Solis and those guys. They publish absolute brilliant stuff. In fact, their modus operandi is they just publish everything. It's great rich theme research, but a model of looking at how one in this new age needs to basically gain attention. I mean, there's so much noise out there. We're all at fault probably in this room because of that. But actually, how do we right-size our communications to optimize that amount of attention? And that kind of circular relationship between all three of those things, and actually, so the measures between them, and then tying them back to business objectives as well. And we talked about measurement before. I think that's one thing that we've all got a job to do right now, is where possible, we might not be able to get causality, but at least get correlation between our paid, owned and earned metrics and the business goals that we're trying to achieve. And if we can do that, then we can take those into the boardroom and say, look, these new programs using things like social media, then they are driving business results.
Very good. Any more on that one?
Only that I'd like to say that models today aren't likely to be models tomorrow anyway, because the environment in which we operate as marketers is changing and changing rapidly. So I think give it a few years' time, and successful strategies today won't work tomorrow anyway. So I guess the best examples today would be those that adapt and change the fastest.
Okay, very good. One more, thank you. After this one, I think, because Peter's now here and he operates in the space of data in its broadest and widest sense in terms of privacy and security and so on, I think if any of you've got any questions or concerns you want to throw at him in that regard, I see one nodding face over there, that would be a good use of the last few minutes or so. Next question, thank you.
Hi, Michelle from the Fragrance Shop. You've kind of mentioned and talked around how marketers need to be more than just colour pickers these days. You know, we need to be more technical, need to be more analytical. Aside from sitting with the dev team, have you got any more advice on how we kind of progress into that area?
Do you want to kick that one off, Paul?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why Mike's here. I think it is about trying to understand where your deficiencies and your skill sets are naturally and try to reskill yourself in those areas and not be afraid to put your hand up and say, I don't understand this area or that area. I think that's the challenge for all of us these days, is to know what we're good at and obviously try and support those skills, but know what we're bad at as well and try to reinforce them.
One from you, Richard?
I completely agree. I mean, that's partly why you're here, Mike, but it's... It always surprises me that, you know, marketing, we're all very passionate about what we do, we're all very good at what we do, but unlike most professional qualifications, we don't have a set number of training hours that we're supposed to do and re-qualification all the way through. That's insane. I mean, our sector moves a lot faster than pretty much every other sector out there. There's new technologies coming along, there's new marketing methods. Why, in God's name, do we think it's fine to do your marketing degree back in 1900 and frozen to death and think that today that is still applicable? It's all about, you know, skills audit within your marketing team. It's understanding where your deficiencies are, as Paul said, and just being really smart about it and thinking, actually, I've heard about this, I need to find more out about it. So that would be my recommendation.
There's a great quote from a futurologist called Alvin Toffler, and he basically said that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read and write, but those who can't learn, unlearn and relearn. And I think that as a quote is pretty relevant to the society we live in today.
Very good. Are there any areas of data privacy, data security, big data, you know, the ugly new term invented by... Yes, sir. Microphone coming.
Hi there, Joe Edwards, Brand Engage. How close are we to the single customer view, is my question to everybody. Because I personally feel like there's lots of suppliers out there talking around how we are, you know, getting a single customer view through the technology, but I also think it's really, really fragmented, and I don't think that we are there yet. I also think, you know, post-digital age, I think companies are still trying to catch up with digital a bit, so I don't think we're there yet either. But yeah, single customer view.
Fabulous.
So I think you just answered your own question there, Joe. But anyway, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the issue is that data is being generated at a far faster rate than people can understand what it means. Just trying to hang together disparate systems in large organisations is almost impossible. We've just done some data IQ research, which 15% of businesses say they have a functioning single customer view. I don't believe it. You know, I think that's far too high a number. Right?
I think there are places in the market where single customer view is absolutely possible. Certainly in the B2B market, where you go online, you need to log in to get your customised pricing. You call the call centre, you're logged in to get that. You know, got to get a password to get your customised pricing. And then you go into the trade counter or whatever else it is, and you hand over your loyalty card. So I think there are places there where that single customer view is becoming potential. There's issues around cross-device activity, you know, moving from mobile to laptop to tablet as part of the buying process. But I think B2B tends to be ahead of the game on this because you tend to have a longer-term relationship rather than a smash-and-grab relationship of going to buy that next pair of jeans online or that CD or whatever else it is. So I think, you know, from B2C marketers, I'd recommend they actually spend some time with their B2B cousins and understand, well, what the heck are they doing? Because they are actually ahead of the game on this, in my humble opinion.
Yes, I think that's entirely true. The only proviso I'd say to this single customer view argument is that if the next round of data protection regulation actually occurs, having a single customer view is going to become a lot more important, and attracting budget will be a lot easier into single customer view programs, because basically you'll be breaking the law if you can't have one, if you can't get to all the data you have about a customer.
Any more on data? Or anything else? It's last knocking.
Steve Henderson from Communicator Corp. You've already suggested that the DMA has been a little bit sensationalist, saying that the new privacy proposals are going to be the death of the industry. But the citations behind those proposals say that the improved security, privacy, data protection and choice is actually designed to improve trade. So what is the balance?
Yeah, thank you for picking me up on my rather sensationalist verbiage. I'm old, so I've heard this from the DMA like 3-4 times. But I take your point entirely, actually. Who'd like to pick that up? Yeah, far away.
Yeah. I mean, is it sensationalist? Probably. Marketing will still be able to happen. Our behaviours will have to change, and maybe the methodologies we use will change. But actually, the environment's heading towards a more inbound marketing environment anyway, which kind of matches the way the legislation works. Is it aimed at producing more sales, better commerce? Well, it's aimed at engendering more trust from consumers. So maybe it is, actually. If they trust you, they're more likely to buy for you. That's been proven. So, there is a problem. But an awful lot of industry won't change fast enough. And the problem that we have as suppliers in this industry is that, if you're in the business, for example, of supplying data, you may not have all your data opted in. Well, what does your business do the day after the legislation becomes law? You might have a couple of years to work it, but it's going to be a problem. So there are jobs at risk, and it's something that we need to be aware of, I think. Ultimately, giving better confidence to consumers about the way that we manage their data has to be a good thing.
I mean, from my perspective, that actually raises an interesting question. I think we're almost pulling privacy and security together in one bucket, and I actually don't see it that way. And I'm pretty sure that consumers don't necessarily see it that way. Now, maybe they kind of classify everything as privacy, including the security issues. And I think it's incumbent upon those of us in the market to actually start to really clearly articulate, well, this is what we mean by privacy and this is what we mean by security, and allow customers to decide what is most important to them. I mean, from my personal perspective, security is really, really important. I don't want somebody hacking into my system. I don't want them, stealing my credit card details, all of that sort of thing. In terms of privacy, then I'm a little bit more lax on that, because if I've got a trusted relationship with a brand and they're actually providing me with insight, information that is relevant to me and more relevant to this other brand that doesn't know me very well, then I'm happy to be a little bit more relaxed on that. Yeah. Maybe I'm not a typical individual, I don't know.
Privacy should be a choice, but security should never be a choice. Yeah, and I think that's the difference between the two. Legislators don't help, of course, because they're putting the two things together in one set of legislation. So, yeah.
Okay, that's wrap-up time. Thank you so much for your participation. Hopefully you've all learned something extra. Thanks for sticking with us. We've overrun, but that probably means it was okay and you sat through. So thank you. Please join me in thanking the panel.